Welcome to the U.S. Manufacturing Today podcast, your hub of information about the U.S. manufacturing and distribution industry. Brought to you by Variable, the on-demand labor solution revitalizing and optimizing your operation, enabling just-in-time response to demand, more efficient production, and lower cost per unit. And now your host and head of reindustrialization at Variable, Matt Horine.
Welcome to U.S. Manufacturing Today, the podcast powered by Variable, where we talk with the leaders, innovators, and changemakers shaping the future of American industry, along with providing regular updates on the state of manufacturing, the changing landscape, policies, and more. We often talk about reshoring, capital investment, automation, and supply chain resilience on this show, but none of it works without understanding how labor and people will help build that industrial capacity. Capable, reliable, and purpose-driven people. Joining us today are two leaders who are redefining what workforce innovation looks like in manufacturing. Tom Welge is the CEO of Gilster-Mary Lee, a leading private label food manufacturer based in the St. Louis area with a long history of operational excellence. And Troy Compardo is the CEO of the Boone Center, an organization dedicated to providing meaningful employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities. Together, they built a partnership that is not just socially impactful, but economically successful. From third-party fulfillment to an internal neurodiverse workforce initiative, this is a story about how inclusion and productivity naturally go hand in hand. Tom and Troy, welcome to U.S. Manufacturing Today.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having us.
Excited to have you guys on today, and of course, Variable partners, so we're really appreciative of that. And we'll just jump right into it. And then, Tom, I'll start with you. Can you start by sharing your path into manufacturing and how you came to lead Gilster-Mary Lee?
I feel like some days I had no other choice, but I'm fourth generation in our family's business, grew up around the business, worked in high school and college, and actually even started by sweeping floors in my grandfather's feed mill, which was part of the business at that time. And that was like 100% job security because the feed mill was generating dust 24 hours a day. So sweeping floors was a good job to have there. But I came back to the business after college and started in sales and quality and just really began to realize how much I enjoy manufacturing. And so I rose up through operations, and then I became president of the company in 2020. And today, that's the role I lead, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you guys today to talk about some of the special projects that we do around labor and workforce.
No, that's great. And really a testament, a fourth generation family company. That's something that sticks around and has been around for a long time. It's been, as you mentioned, it's been around for decades. How has the company evolved in the past couple of years under your leadership, or in recent times over maybe the past decade or so?
I would say one of the biggest areas we've had to evolve around is around the availability of labor and qualified labor. It used to be there was plentiful labor in these rural areas where we were located in our manufacturing facilities, but that's not the case anymore. And so we had to get smarter, both about the types of products that we make, the way we lay out our operations, and then get more creative in finding other sources of labor and diversifying our workforce.
That's something that's been a recurring theme on our show, is that folks are looking for creative ways to tackle that challenge, and really excited to get into that here in a few minutes. Troy, I want to jump to you. Could you tell us about your journey and what led you to the Boone Center?
It was a little interesting. I was working in the healthcare operations space at BJC Healthcare for about 10 years, while I was also working for the Illinois Air National Guard part-time, serving as a medical officer. And it was around COVID-19. I got deployed for COVID response, and I was in Chicago for about 90 days doing some work on building out McCormick Place Field Hospital up there. And I had a lot of time in my room because after we were done with work, we were locked down to our rooms, and I was reflecting on, man, I'm not sure about this healthcare job anymore. Maybe I should look for something else. But all joking aside, I'm very mission focused, obviously, with the military side and healthcare side. And I had someone reach out to me about Boone Center. A recruiter actually out of New Jersey. And I'm like, what is Boone Center all about? It turns out I thought it was in Columbia, Missouri, or Boone County, which is where we had a BJC hospital. But turns out it was right next to my house in O'Fallon, Missouri. And it reminded me of the time I spent at SAU Carbondale where I did undergrad. I was supervisor of the special populations department down there at the rec center, and I coached the wheelchair basketball team, and I was a trainer for adults with disabilities, mostly physical disabilities at the time. And it just really spoke to me. It was like a little bit of, I think, God calling me to a different journey. And I jumped on a call with our board, and when I was in Chicago, and then when I had a chance to visit, I toured our packaging facility, and I tell you, just all in love with it. And I just felt like it aligned with the different variable skill sets that I've built over the years. And I just felt like I was blessed to lead the mission and was chosen to lead the mission. And so that's how I ended up here, by chance, but I think by God.
That's really a great story and something mission-backed for sure. And thank you for your service, by the way. That's something that's a lot of mission-centric thinking and alignment there on your journey to the Boone Center. What is the mission of the Boone Center and how has it evolved since your time being there?
It's not a 4 generations like Tom's family's operation, but we do trace our roots back to 1959. We call them our founding mothers. So Margaret Holmes and Jane Kreider founded Boone Center in St. Charles City back then. And they had family members, kids who had developmental disabilities, and they thought, how can we get them employed? The unemployment rate in that space was just high, so it remains high today. And so they bought a candle manufacturing company. They named it Boone Center right off of Boone's Boulevard at St. Charles City and started employing community members who had disabilities. And St. Charles County was a very rural community at the time. And as the county's population grew, the need for the services grew. More folks needed Boone Center. And then the county started making investments through tax levies, both real estate, personal property, which is a big ticket item right now in Missouri, to help support our operation a little bit. And now we don't get a lot of that. We don't get a lot of that, but it helps us grow a little bit. And so over the course of time, the number of people we employed grew. We couldn't do manufacturing solely, so we pivoted into contract packaging around 1990. And that allowed us to really grow the footprint of people we could employ. And we now reside in about 100,000 square foot space at our main facility, employing 185 adults with developmental disabilities directly in our packaging facility. But we also have evolved over time to do more and more community-based employment with manufacturing partners, and also doing vocational skills training and development, and then placing those individuals in competitive roles in the community. And so that's become a big part of who we are. And we've expanded that footprint into Illinois and into Southwest Missouri as well.
That's an incredible growth story and a really mission-oriented story. It's great to hear about the growth and the size of the facility and how many people are there. Tom, we'll get into how your relationship with the Boone Center began or how it started, but also wanted to take the chance to talk about Gilster-Mary Lee and what exactly your specialties are and maybe a little bit about food manufacturing.
We grew out of a flour mill back in the 1800s, and as the markets changed, we made the decision to go into retail consumer products. At the time we did this in the late 1950s, we realized that we didn't have the capital to be a national brand at that point. We were making cake mixes was the first product, and there was already Betty Crocker, Duncan Hines, Pillsbury, and we did not have the money to compete with those guys. We hitched our wagon to store brands at that point, which was new at that point, but that's been our focus since then. And so we don't do a lot of products that have our name on them, but we probably have a product, probably a pretty good chance in almost anybody listening, because our customers are the retailers and the wholesalers and brand owners across the US and Canada. In really big buckets, it's like baking mixes, baking needs, breakfast cereal, dinners like mac and cheese dinners, hamburger helper type dinners, microwave popcorn, and then smallest piece of business is around cocoa and hot chocolate mixes, chocolate syrup, and those products. So our value to our customers is we can make all these different products in our different facilities. We combine, ship them out of our distribution centers. And the grocery business, food business is about turning your inventory as quickly as you can because you don't make a lot of margin on any one sale. So our customers have the ability to buy truckloads of product, but not commit to a truckload of cornflakes or a truckload of mac and cheese. And that's the way we built the business through the years. And today we sell something to every major chain and wholesaler in the US and Canada. And I'm very fortunate to have really good relationships. Some of those, the very first customer in 1961 is still a customer of ours today.
Wow. That's an incredible testament to kind of the staying power of that and what you've built. I'm curious because we touched on it a little bit at the outset and we can get into the details, but how did the relationship with the Boone Center begin? And you were talking a little bit about workforce. Tom, what operational need were you looking to try to solve at the time?
I think the initial introduction to Troy was with Jarrett from the variable team. And he said he knew of what the work we were doing around employing people with autism and neurodiversities. And he said, you need to meet Troy. And I'm glad he made that introduction. Troy came down and visited us and he saw the operations, the things that we were doing. And I think at the moment we didn't have a lot that we could do together, but we said, let's keep in touch. And sooner or later, the need will come up, and it did. One of our cereal customers who does a lot of licensed products, he was behind Flutie Flakes when that first came out and some Patrick Mahomes promotional cereals and those kind of things. He came out with a product and he didn't really have somebody that could service internet orders and do small shipments. And that's not our business either. We want to ship truckloads of things. And so I think at that point, we introduced him to Troy and the Boone Center, and they were able to get something going. And Boone Center really filled a big need that they had to make this program successful.
Yeah, that's great. And a shout out to Jared, who introduced us as well. A little bit of a variable connected there. But Troy, what did this partnership, and structurally, what does that partnership mean for your organization? What's the ultimate goal of your organization with these types of partnerships?
I'll kind of just piggyback on Tom's story a little bit, because he connected us with who needed that e-commerce service. And Tom asked me, I think over email, can you do this? I'm like, I don't know if we can or not. And then Ty asked me the same question. I'm like, I'm not sure we can either. It's not really initially one of our capabilities, because we too like to ship truckloads out. It just makes more sense for us as well to package truckloads of things and send them out. But as a mission-driven organization, we said, hey, does this make sense within our framework? Or does it apply? Does it employ adults with developmental disabilities? Does it provide us a new capability that we could sell so we can provide more meaningful jobs? Does it give us some exposure so we can speak about what we're trying to accomplish, so we get a little bit more of the message out? We got together and said, yeah, we think it meets all those criterias. Oh, by the way, Ty already told us we had the business, which was great, because Ty also his son had a disability, and his son passed away recently. And so we built this really, I think, unique ecosystem between Tom, Ty, and Boone Center. And I think every time we get on the phone and talk about what we're trying to accomplish and who we're giving meaning and purpose to, I think it all just makes us feel good and brings a tear to our eye, frankly. And it definitely met a need. It gave us new capabilities. And I'm just thankful that just from meeting Tom the first time, and it led to some really unique things that we were able to do at Boone Center.
Yeah, no, it's an incredible story, and something that is obviously very mission driven. And I think one of the big things and themes of us meeting and talking, we've talked about the range that both organizations have, but how this ties back into really is a great focus in manufacturing, and how manufacturing jobs really overall for the country are the heart and soul of the nation. And most of them are small, medium-sized businesses, and employ their local communities, and to do this in a way that includes everybody is something pretty incredible. I think from the operations side, Tom, how has this initiative helped stay focused on manufacturing, while maybe the Boone Center does things a little different, but talking about how it gets into specifically the manufacturing side of your business?
Our project began around 2019, when we were really struggling for employees, people that we could bring in entry-level positions to the organization. I have a son with developmental disabilities myself, and while he doesn't have autism, you're in this community and you understand what these challenges these other families are facing. And I was reading one day a stat that said like 83% of adults with autism never get a full-time job. And I thought, what a tragedy. We're struggling to bring people to work, and there's this group of people, and I knew some of them, even in our small town, that had bounced from job to job their whole life and never been able to find a place where they really fit. We said, hey, we're gonna explore this. We want to start a program and work with these individuals. They have a lot to contribute, and we thought we knew they'd be great additions to our organization, but we didn't even begin to realize how positive the influence would be. And so we went out, hired a consultant, started training, not training the individuals, training ourselves how to make them successful in their jobs, gave all our managers a course on what it's like to have autism and what it means and how you look at the world. And then we identified jobs. Not every job is for everybody, and that's whether you're neurotypical or neurodiverse, but we identified 3 or 4 positions in different production lines that were appropriate. And we brought in our first employee. COVID slowed us down a little bit, but the back half of 2020, we brought our first employee in. And last year, that individual hit 5 years with us. And prior to that, I don't think he had 5 months with any job that he had before. So it's a very powerful success story for him. And I was incidentally, like, the effect on our other employees, they were so glad to see us as an organization moving in this direction, because maybe they had an individual with special needs in their family, or they knew somebody, and to see us put resources towards this was a very positive thing for our whole culture. And it's one thing to feel good about doing something like that, but it is a very much an economic success. They are the individuals we have, and we have 21 of them in our 2 facilities now. They're some of the best employees that you could hope to have. Tremendous attitudes. They understand the task. They enjoy being at work. they're a positive influence to the whole team that we have.
Yeah, that's a huge cultural impact on a lot of different levels, but certainly something, initial expectations were probably one thing, and there were some surprises along the way. So it's great to hear the response from your workforce on that front. And the fact that a lot of times it seems like a natural conclusion, although maybe not at the outset, that the economic success story is paired so well with it. It's a natural occurring thing when when they have good attitudes, they want to work. And manufacturing is very unique in this, that people want to build and do things with their hands, that it's a really good outlet and a place to find that kind of meaning and purpose. Troy, from your perspective, what do manufacturers misunderstand about hiring individuals with disabilities? They don't maybe draw the connection to that kind of economic impact, or where's the gap in the market that you've seen?
Yeah, I think they sometimes confuse the population. They paint a pretty broad brush over disabilities, and they have whatever picture they have in their mind of a person with a disability. And so I think that's one thing. They think of it as maybe a social mission, doing a favor for somebody, versus really thinking about the person, and they underestimate what that person can deliver to their organization, especially when it comes to retention. So Tom mentioned somebody who's been there for 5 years, right? And they think it's a big lift, and they may measure it too soon. They may say 30 days in, we're not successful, moving on. That's the typical, hey, we have a KPI and we're going to get after it and it's not working, so let's throw the towel in. I think those are some things that come to mind when I work with folks, and we try to break all those barriers down. And we use stories like Tom. So about the same time Tom started his programming in the community, we did the same thing with True Manufacturing here across the street from us, which is one of the largest manufacturers of commercial refrigeration in the world. The True Last family has a steep legacy, very similar to Tom's family in this space. And 5 years ago, we started doing vocational training with them, placing individuals in their facility, really worked with the HR department and the leaders there to train them like Tom's team did. And today we have 50 individuals working for True Manufacturing in pretty intense manufacturing, hot welding, building on paint lines, on wire shelving lines, doing spot welding, mostly on the autism spectrum, neurodiverse folks. And the retention rate over 2 years is 70%. Show me another manufacturer who has 70% retention in their traditional hires. It's just, you're not going to find it. So again, breaking down those kind of misconceptions and letting folks like Tom and I speak to what can be done and not what can't be done. So I think it's really important.
That's a great point. People find all kinds of ways to talk themselves out of doing certain things, and it's what can we accomplish here and what can we build? It sounds like both of you have implementing these programs, and Troy running the program as well. Tom alluded to this earlier, the training that goes into your existing staff and how to think about this differently. What kinds of systems make these initiatives so sustainable? We talk about it on a show like this. It sounds very easy. It's your whole job and the mission of your organization to make that happen. What kind of things do make it so sustainable in manufacturing?
It's training your teams to understand. And Boone Center does a lot of that. Whenever we go into a new employer or existing employers, lots of training with the teams. I do think there's leadership buy-in. You need that. And that then jumps you into training and understanding, and to be curious, ask a lot of questions. The teams need to do that too. Boone Center, we have job coaches as well. So whenever we place, we have both two types of programs. We have a very specific vocational training program we have, which the state pays for in Missouri, 120 hours of skills training. Illinois has a similar program to their vocational rehabilitation office. So it's free to the employers to allow us to come in and provide that training for a client. But then I think it's also the follow along support we get through a job coach session. And sometimes employers that we work with think of those as a crutch, but it's not a crutch. It's just, hey, we're there to look at the nuances, make sure we intervene on, and mostly it tends to be soft skill training, which I think everybody could use soft skill training, but between that manager and that employee and this understanding how that teammate's going to be, maybe has a little bit of nuances to how you have to work with them. And once you understand those, you're in good shape, generally speaking. A couple of those things, leadership buy-in, training, job coaching, and just being curious about it.
I'd say some of the things that we undertook have benefits for the rest of the population of your labor force, right? It's like visual cues and job definition and things as an organization we probably didn't do a good enough job at before. This really gave us the opportunity to step back and say, okay, what are the 6 essential things to be successful in this job? Here's some diagrams, here's some layouts on the floor. And I think it's improved just how we onboard typical non-neurodivergent people into the workforce as well.
It's a continuous improvement approach and things where you can find all kinds of ways to apply it across the organization. I think That leads into our next segment. We talked about this a little bit, what we could call something like labor innovation. And we talk a lot about reindustrialization on the show, bringing industry back to the US domestically. And the work shortage does come up often. We talk about it as a labor access issue, which this show is just reinforcing that access to being able to participate in the workforce. We're seeing workforce participation rates start to make a move for the first time in years. And so broadening the talent pool seems like a natural, yes, it does. This is one way to broaden the talent pool. But Tom, do you see this as an initiative as part of a broader strategy to build a more resilient workforce overall, and where most companies, if they took this approach, could assuage some of those labor shortage issues?
I do. I think, and I don't think there's one magic bullet for the labor situation. Reaching out to these folks, this population, is certainly a great thing, and I would encourage a manufacturer to look into it in their own communities. We also work with people coming out of recovery treatment programs and wanting to enter the workforce, people coming out of a correction facility trying to re-enter the workforce, working with more closely with apprenticeship programs and trying to get more people manufacturing. Mark Denzler, who's the president of the Illinois Manufacturers Association, he likes to say we have to convince folks that manufacturing is not the 3Ds, dirty, dark, and dangerous. It's modern, it's high tech, there's all kinds of jobs. And so I think, and lots of need and unfilled need at this time. So I think as manufacturing leaders, you have to look at your world where you're operating and where are these untapped pockets and what kind of partnerships can you form to bring more people into the workforce. It's not going to be overnight. Like Troy said, you have to commit to it and know you're going to see it through and you're going to have to adjust. But there's some really great things that can come out of it for your organization if you see it through.
No, absolutely. Troy, I think Tom hit on something there, and maybe you can provide some insight, from your perspective. Can manufacturers nationwide replicate this model? How much is what you do something that is very regional? Because when we talk about reindustrialization, a lot of that has to do with ecosystems. So supply chains, everything else being localized. A lot of manufacturing is local, small, medium-sized businesses. But how can we look at this from a national perspective? Is it something that's really regionally aligned?
Yeah, I would say if Tom can do it, and Gilster-Mary Lee and True Manufacturing can do it in two very different types of markets, really, in states and areas, I think it can definitely be replicated. Just going to depend on the buy-in from those organizations. Boone Center, we can clearly be a surrogate to help facilitate those things and understand what's available from a state and county funding perspective to help facilitate some of that. Tom was willing to, as a company, to make the investment because it mattered to him, personally mattered to him, but it also mattered to the business and to the local community. And you have those things aligned, which is very helpful. But we have the blueprint. We know how to do it. It's a commitment from the manufacturers. I think Tom mentioned earlier an 83% number of folks who are unemployed in this space. The number I talk about often is 75% of folks with a disability are unemployed or underemployed. And there's roughly 40 million people who have a disability in this country. And so it's a labor force that's available. Not that every one of those folks can become employed, but the labor is there. And if you want to innovate, and that's part of what a great manufacturer is going to do, they're always going to be innovating, looking to be agile, and they should reach out to some of these programs that have had success and let us guide them through it. And then the return on the investment is tenfold. So yes, in a short, the answer to your question, yes, it can be replicated.
It's a great answer because it's a complicated question. People think it's just a plug and play. And obviously both your organizations have invested heavily in this and the organizational train-up that goes along with it. And we talk a lot about it from the reindustrialization perspective at the national level, or reshoring supply chains, or doing things like that. Sometimes the answer is right in front of you locally, being creative and thinking in innovative ways. Looking forward on this, what does success look like 5 years from now for not only just both your partnerships here, but individually for your organizations? How do you see this growing and evolving over the next, and 5 years is really a short time window. We can say 5 to 10.
So we have the program in 2 of our manufacturing plants now. We have 11. In my world, we bring this forward into the rest of the facilities. One of my really great things I'm proud of is we have one of these individuals. He's been promoted. He's a forklift operator now. And that's not a job that he or his parents, I think, ever dreamed for him, but that's a skill. Even if he leaves us, he can take that to another manufacturer, and he's got skills that he's bringing forward into his job now. I personally hope we can continue to work with Troy's team, get more projects, and then I think there's even some opportunities that we can learn from them in terms of how they go about things, how they train great committed workforce as well. That's my hope in the next few years is we just continue to see this grow throughout our organization. And hopefully we can inspire other manufacturers to take the time and put the effort in and to make themselves better this way too.
Yeah, Troy, how about yourself? How do you see, and being in the role a couple of years now, how do you see it playing out over the next couple of years?
And we do some visioning session with our board of directors, and we think about these things a lot, like where we want to go. And I would say that we want to be the Boone Center or whoever we work with. We want clients to be coming to us right away, right when they're starting to transition out of high school and into the workforce. We want to be the go-to for those parents to know that there's an off-ramp or an on-ramp to the next phase. Like what happens when the bus stops coming? Today, still, parents don't know. Like they're just nervous, they can confused, they don't know what the resources are available. But I want them to make sure they know that there's a pathway for all their loved ones to have meaningful jobs that are productive in the community, and there's a way to get after that. And I hope by that time we have some of this transportation issue solved, maybe through some Waymos or whatever, because that's probably the biggest barrier for employment is transportation. And if we're all a neurodiverse, many can drive, but there's a lot who just never can quite get that driver's license, but they're still very effective in your facilities as employees, as teammates. And so hopefully we break some of those barriers down, obstacles both just socially and the perception that we have some of these other limitations, the transportation broken down as well. And so that we have a nice smooth pathway for individuals to get employed. And then I hope we have a really robust summer work program between Illinois and Missouri. We want to get young teenagers interested in manufacturing. And it's been proven, and we have a nice foundation that helps us support some of this called the Spark Force Foundation. That's founded by the Mitsubishi facility or foundation that allows us to do summer work programming in manufacturing for 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. Some states support that, but that allows us to get teenagers in this space their first summer work experience, sometimes their second. And if we get them hooked, then get their parents hooked, and then they're interested, and then they'll turn into full-time employees or teammates for others. And I hope that's expanded because I think that's a really valuable opportunity for young teenagers.
The transportation, huge issue, and especially reaching this workforce. And so to the extent both, especially in rural areas, right, and less developed areas where the public transportation system is not as robust, that's a big challenge. And there are people that we would like to bring onto our program, but transportation's an issue. That's something we got to work on together.
Yeah, that's a very common thing. What we see a lot of times in the variable marketplace is proximity is the truth teller. When people are bidding on ops that are way beyond reach of they'd have to 100% drive, there's no public transportation. Very common. Our manufacturers look at that proximity. So it's something that's always been true, and I'm sure it's certainly a challenge. Troy, on that question, what is one myth that kind of seems to persist or something that you are able to go after very quickly?
That it's a person. And don't underestimate the person. We're trying to remove barriers for a person to be successful, right? Forget about the disability. Don't underestimate them.
Absolutely spot on and makes a lot of sense. Tom, doubling down on that, if every manufacturer adopted even part of this approach, how do you think it could change the industry or at least change their organization?
I'll tell you, and I may have shared this with you before, but I speak to some groups sometimes about our experience here. And I always start the discussion, I say, do not hire a person with disabilities or neurodiversities unless you want somebody that shows up to work on time, that understands the rules and the requirements of the job, takes tremendous pride in getting them done, 99% of the time brings a great attitude to the workplace, and that they're the kind of person that your other employees want to work around. Just like Troy said, I think underestimating what these people have and how they can contribute to your organization, that's the biggest mistake you can make. Not everything's going to work fine and they'll have bad days, but I am a strong believer that just big untapped resource, and shame on us for waiting this long as an industry and as a country to figure out how to help these people be their very best and give their very best to their organizations.
It's an incredible thing because, like we were talking about earlier, the solution to a lot of workforce issues, or the answer is right there in front of you, regionally, locally, however you slice it up. Tom, where can our listeners go to find out more about Gilster-Mary Lee and maybe some things that you're working on? And it's funny because what you said at the beginning of the show, we probably got those products in our house. Where could our listeners learn more about you and your company?
Sure. Our website is a great overview of the company and the kind of things that we do. It's a bit of a mouthful, and I guess it'll be in your notes, but it's www.gilstermarylee.com. I'm on LinkedIn, and I try to highlight the work of not just of our neurodiverse employees, but all our employees, because I think I'm very fortunate to have such a team to lead. And so certainly connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to share our experience and offer any suggestions that I could if somebody's interested in exploring this.
And Troy, where can our listeners go to find out more about the Boone Center?
Yeah, certainly. I think BooneCenter.com is a great first stop. But our Facebook page at Boone Center and our LinkedIn page also for Boone Center, we do a really great job at posting success stories about our individuals. We do what we call My BCI videos. So we go right to the people who are out there working in the workforce, and they tell their story themselves, and they're quick vignettes about what that job and what that employment means to them, both here within BCI Packaging, but also with our partners. And so I think those are just stories to listen to. And if you need something to make you feel good, go listen to a couple of our teammates that talk about what they're doing.
Absolutely. We'll be sure to link those in the comments on the show and on our socials as we air this in the coming weeks. Tom and Troy, thank you both very much for your time. It's an incredible mission and a great story, and we're very happy to share it.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Today's conversation shows that American manufacturing strength doesn't just come from equipment, automation, or policy, which we talk a lot about on the show, but it does come from people. When manufacturers think creatively about partnerships and expand who they consider part of their workforce, they unlock both economic and human potential. Tom and Troy are proving that inclusion isn't separate from performance, it reinforces it. So thank you for listening, and to stay ahead of the curve and to help plan your strategy, please check out our website at variableapps.com and under the resources section titled Trump 2.0, where you can see the framework around upcoming policies and how they will impact your organization. If you're on socials, give us a follow on LinkedIn, X, Truth, or Instagram. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please feel free to follow the show on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, and leave us a rating, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you again for joining us and learning more about how you can make your way.